Beautiful. Oh, and postscriptum, P.S. Delao, we miss you, brother. We didn't have you on the episode today. But we love you, man. We missed the word of the day.
Mr. Oreo,
we missed you. We missed you today, brother. So just, I know you'll probably be listening to this or watching this, but we missed you today, man. So.
Welcome to the TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker. I am one of your many hosts of the TowerCast network, here to present you some wonderful filmmakers here today. Let's go ahead and shout out the room. John Eric Castro, the actor.
What's going on, guys?
Carlos M. De La Torre, there he is, the man, the myth, the legend.
What's going on, guys? Thank you for tuning in to the TowerCast.
Francisco and Luis from Tricast. What's going on, you guys?
Ooh, hey, guys. How are you? An interesting one.
A very interesting one. As you know, we are your towering filmmakers, keeping it real like a roll of film, always looking to develop with you, the listeners, the dreamers, and the stories that you tell. Welcome to TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmaker. So how's it going, you guys? How have you guys been?
Good. I think it's also important to know we got Austin Young in the room, and we got Eric Sanchez, and we're also going to be kind of talking a little bit here and there and chime in on the crazy stories we have with these amazing guys, the Trikcast guys, man.
How long has it been, man, since we've known these guys? Or at least...
It's been since Sun City Lights, since our first short. Since our first short,
2.5 years.
Oh, it's more than that, dude. At least 3 years, at least.
Damn, really?
Because the way we met these guys, or the way we met them was we had just wrapped Sun City Lights, which was our first short ever.
That's right.
And we were we screened it for the UTEP Film Club, which the Francisco and Luis were in charge of for a good chapter.
Yeah.
And then not only that, but we were actually shooting in the studio. We were shooting a reshoot. We were doing a reshoot for the end scene. In the studio at the UTEP studio that doesn't exist anymore, man. It breaks my heart, but that studio the basement studio in the education building doesn't exist.
That's where it all started, man.
That's where it all started, man. And that's how we met them. We kind of just like they were Ramon Villa, who's a professor of ours. I asked him for permission to use the studio, and he was like, "Yeah, man, but I'm gonna have my guys there to like supervising us." You know? Yeah. And then Francisco and Luis show up, and we're like, "Oh, what's up, man?" But they didn't get in the way at all. They were just kind of, you would see them off in a corner just talking about what we were doing.
Were they in charge of it yet or no?
They were in charge of the film club, yeah.
Yeah, we made it. Yeah, we came up with the idea because there was not a lot of filmmakers that we knew.
Right.
But there was a lot of like interest in the filmmaking scene. And honestly, I mean, it's crazy to think that we had just the I don't know, the balls, the courage to start a film club. Because I was super new. Francisco was straight out of like another experience of doing a short in another school. But yeah, like the point of the club was to find guys like you guys that were interested, that were passionate. You guys
wanted to create an atmosphere that would bring together like the Dirty Dozen of El Paso. So that's awesome.
Yeah, well, where does the origins of Trikcast come from? I know that there was 3 of you guys, right? Now it's 2.
Well, yeah. Well, the idea, originally. Okay, let me interject a little bit. First of all, Luis was the president of the film club, and I was the vice president. And it kind of the idea came organically out of. We were doing a short film that I directed. Luis wanted to get into films, and he was like, "I'm new at this," and I was pretty new as well. So we're like, "Okay, let's just shoot a film, figure out what this process is like together, right?" So we shot the film, and while shooting, Luis started giving me the idea of I want to make this film club, and I want you to be a part of it. So we started the film club, and Villa kind of took us under his wing for a little while. Like I will say, for the first year, he will give us that basement to shoot, and he will let us borrow equipment and stuff.
Cool.
And that's kind of how we came across. Most of the guys who are now in Tricast actually started with us in the film club, or that's how we met you guys, the Tower guys. We wanted to meet better people, but you get what you get.
Just for the listeners out there and people tuning into the YouTube, just so you know, we're really good friends with these guys, and we'll get into that. So if you hear us bashing on each other in an insensitive way, I promise you it's not insensitive to us. We get worse. So don't
don't be friends. I don't know about that, but sure, we know each other. And so Luis and I started this, and then I told him that I had this idea of doing a production company. And in my head, it was just like a way of ensuring that even after the film club, we could still make films and we could still get together and do things outside of school, right? Under a banner that seemed a little more professional than just this is the school's work. And so I had this idea. We called it Tricast, and it was interesting because we did have other people on board at first, but it was never really like, I will say official until we started really like, I don't know, developing more films and really working at them. And so by the time we had like 5 or 6 short films under our wing, we started like, okay, maybe this Tricast thing is an actual company that we should take seriously. And so like in the last year and a half, we really started putting like all of our energy, our resources, our time into developing the company. So like, yeah, and I will say that right now, Tricast is Luis and me, just our creative partnership, I will say, and whatever he directs on, I DP for him. Whatever I direct, he DPs for me, and it's a very like symbiotic relationship that we have. There's just like my creative partner and
fantastic duel.
Well, yeah, I mean it's different when you're working your way up with somebody, because like I feel you like back in high school I started up the film club as well, and the relationships you develop with people when you're building something from the ground up, like.
Like-minded people.
Like-minded people, yeah. I mean, I wonder, like, did you guys ever have, like, a moment where, you know, perhaps you started off with whatever equipment and in the school, did you guys ever always have to sort of, you know, champion the club in order to get more funding together? I'm sure that's what allowed you guys to sort of develop this symbiotic relationship where you were able to make that jump from, like, organizing the club to realizing that you can organize, you know, a film company.
I think what it was is that we did that first short, and we noticed right away that our the way that we work really well together, and we work very natural together. And it was one of those things that we wanted to branch out because we wanted to find other people. We wanted to find, and we had the club for 1 year, and then we passed it to somebody else, and they had it for another semester, and then went there for like another semester, and now another wonderful student is taking the lead with another film club.
Yeah,
so that's wonderful. But
shout out to John Gonzalez. I know he's
Oh, he's the one that kept it going.
Yeah.
No. Well, like he it was already it went dark. It went dark. And then he blew it up.
He kind of revamped it again.
Yeah.
So what was your guys' first impression, man? Because I remember that's the beauty of what I think is the Tower Tricast relationship. The beautiful thing about it is we were both really kind of starting out in the same pace. We really were like new when both of us were new, and I don't think I've ever asked you guys this. We always just talk about a bunch of different stuff, but what was your guys' first impression like when we met? Because it was a little weird, right? Like we were kind of just, we didn't know each other at all. We didn't have classes together, nothing like that. It was just kind of like we're both.
He's talking about himself, okay? You can skip me.
Well, what was your guys' first impression, man? Because I'm pretty sure at that point, Austin, Eric, myself, and Castro were in the room. You know, kind of the bare bones of Tower when Tower started. What was your guys' first impression at that point?
So personally, I was really, really well pleased that you went to the first ever meeting of the film club.
Did I really?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that was really cool because after that we did like a lot of advertisements and stuff like that. But on that first meeting, it was all about brainstorming, like where are we gonna take this and stuff like that. So yeah, you were there for like the very, very beginning. Like you had to leave or whatever, but like I had a really good impression of like, hey, at least you want to be part of something, filmmaking, a community. So that was good from my part. What about you, Francisco?
For me, I always knew that Austin and me were gonna be like
lovers,
unspoken lovers.
We were lovers, Austin.
Do experimental films together.
Oh yeah, of course. I got the same.
I'll try my hardest. I'll try my hardest to be serious. I always try to keep this in mind, to just be open to any filmmaker that I meet, regardless of like my personal impressions. I always try to think like, well, I want to see their films. I want to see what they think about filmmaking. I want to see what they think about what we do, what they do. Like, there's something I can get out of this, right? And I found myself in a position where I didn't know a lot of filmmakers in El Paso. So, like, these guys were, like, the first ones that were kind of, like, in the same playing field as I was, and were trying to do the similar things that I was. So it was very interesting. And I feel like we organically developed this friendship without. It was almost like we didn't set out to be friends. It just organically happened, just because we were in the same circles, we were doing the same similar things. It was funny because like we borrowed their equipment. Sometimes they borrowed ours as we were coming up. We will talk about similar cameras that we want to get, and we had like similar resources to get them. Whenever we had like a production thing, like they will help us out saying like, oh, this is how we got this thing. We will tell them this is how we got this thing. So like it was a very
teamwork makes the dream
relationship. And it started developing this weird thing that we fantasized about, right? When you hear the stories about Tarantino and Rodriguez and the Three Amigos and how like they push each other. Yeah. And for us, it was interesting because it was like, well, these guys are kind of like coming up at the same time as we are, and they're in the same school and they're in the same circles, right? So like it just organically happened, and I feel like we do have this cool relationship where we have these Village Inn meetings that have become tradition, right? Where we just meet at this Village Inn and we just stay there and we speak. We always say that we're gonna meet for an hour, and then we just talk about movies for 4 or 5 hours, and it always happens, and we always get mad at the end because we're like, fuck, like we just wasted our day.
Here's the thing about that. The thing about that is we've developed this cool friendship to the point where we always felt like it was gonna be the right time to collaborate, and we've never collaborated in the 3 or 4 years that we known each other. Until recently, where I can't talk about it much, but we're doing a very cool collaboration finally, and it became the type of thing where we would send each other scripts just to get ideas, just to get feedback on scripts or feedback on a cut of a film we did or a music video or whatever we're working on at the time. Organically, it kind of works out all around the same time. They're like quarterly meetings, dude. It like weirdly like. Every few months we'll be like, yo man, what are you guys working on? You just want to go get some coffee, Village Inn, and shoot the shit?
Filmmaker.
And then it's like, oh yeah, hey man, I got a script. Can you read it before the meeting so we can talk about it? Oh yeah, I got this. And then we get to the meeting to talk about the idea, to talk about the pitch. And we talk for 3-4 hours about the films we just saw. And then for like 25 minutes, we talk about the script or whatever. Stuff, you know, that's gotten better, by the way. Like we've like dug into each other's scripts and helped each other as best as we can. In fact, I just had a meeting with Francisco on Monday and then with Luis yesterday about a very special project I'm working on. And they Francisco's meeting was like 2.5 hours. Luis's meeting was like 4 hours, dude. I'm not even kidding here. Like we tore it apart, man. And that's the type of relationship we've established, I think, which has been really cool, really special to us.
It almost sounds like this episode. We're sorry, man. It sounds like we're talking about like the sort of like ingredients that you sort of need to establish a good rapport. It's been quite the journey with the Towering Filmmakers. One of the things we've been asking all of our guests, all of our filmmakers, is take us through your hero's journey. But I think that because we've already dabbled onto that, my question would be like, what do you think is the most important 3 ingredients to have such a beautiful hero's journey that you guys have had? Because, I totally see the friendship. I totally see the, all the puzzle pieces that you guys sort of completed each other, either with, working on things in a consecutive way or, the back and forths you might have with each other. I could see that you guys have had all those. So that's really beautiful to see the way you guys communicate with each other as well. One of the things that's how I met Carlos was, actually that's not true. I met him at the Media Fest, but we did have a meeting at that famous, Village Inn. And I remember that like, oh, so what do you know this and this? So like, you guys have built this really beautiful magic, bond that you guys just allow anybody to come into. So that's one of the things that really attached to me. What do you think are the 3 most important ingredients to keep a filmmaker going as much as you guys have? Because did you guys ever, feel like what kind of motivated you, like to continue the film club, to continue to Tricast, like those little jumps, and then to continue with Tower?
Okay. Personally, and I know that you have a similar thing, friend, where I think it came from like a very big fall, and then film club was rising ourselves up to where we wanted to get to. Personally, like it was like a year after high school. And just like things didn't work out. Like there was like I remember there was a scholarship that I was applying to, and my best friend got the scholarship. That was $1 million scholarship. It was like I lost $1 million, and I was like, and it was like devastating, right? Oh. And I think from that you build hunger, of like, okay, what is it really that I'm trying to pursue? What is it really that I want?
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, the scholarship would have been interesting, but it would have led me in a way that I would have been not happy with my decisions in my life. So finding myself and finding that hunger. So I would say, I don't know about the three, but definitely one is hunger. Second one, maybe just be persistent, or like have that, like, I don't know. Yeah. Like persistence. And I don't know about the third one. We always joke around that me and Francisco were perfectionists. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Maybe.
I feel that. No, it shows. It shows in your work. So that's not a bad thing to have.
So I don't know.
For me, it's really difficult to talk about questions like that because it's very easy to get very pretentious. And
no, not you, Francisco.
Okay.
No way.
I'll just kind of like drop my philosophies on you guys, and you make
Go for it, man.
whatever you want to make out of it. For me, the biggest thing for me specifically was finding the right people to work with, and when I started from a place of ego and a place of just self-centeredness, where I was like, I will see Star Wars or Lord of the Rings or movies that were so big, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. But that's a very, I don't know, a very kiddie
it's the
way
beginning of the step.
And he can, by the way. I mean, Francisco and Luis, both of them alike, man. Like their skills for filmmaking and for world building, and we'll get into that a little more, but they can. So I think it's awesome to kind of the way they're humbling themselves, because I think that's a big ingredient. Whatever.
For me specifically, it has to do with the fact that when I started, I remember one of the biggest moments of my life, of my career, I would say, was going to my first film festival and realizing that I hated the movie I was showing. And I think that was a big growing experience where I thought I was doing the right thing by being this movie is mine and this script is like this and the film has to be like that. And then that humbling experience of like, I didn't even like what I made was very important for me and very, very, it gave me a lot of growth because it allowed me to open up and be like, Luis, what are your ideas? And everybody on set, tell me your ideas. Actor, what do you want to bring to me? So like, as I developed that, I started realizing and I started valuing every single aspect of filmmaking, right? So you start realizing like, well, maybe I should study acting and theater so that I can respect and learn the craft of acting, right?
Yeah,
so
the different perspectives you want to go into.
Right, because you want to understand what they're doing so that you know what to ask and you know what
honor
to
them
give.
a lot more.
Yep.
And same with cinematography, same with writing, same with music. There's all these little things, and if you're not allowing yourself to work with the right people and the good people, you're kind of like cutting yourself short, and there's just so much you can do by yourself. And I will say that the biggest thing for me was finding Luis. That it was funny because I'm a big believer that rivalry and competition makes you better, right? And I will say that my greatest competitor and my biggest rival is also my best friend, who's Luis. Because it's funny, every time that we set out to make a movie, it's almost like we're trying to beat each other. But at the same time, we're trying to help each other beat us, which is weird. Like, if Luis
how do you keep that healthy? Because that is something that's a part of this industry. Is that like, you guys were having a conversation about oh my gosh, Guillermo del Toro, and Benito. Like, how do you maintain? Because that's something you have to one acknowledge it, and then two, keep it healthy. Like, how do you maintain a healthy competitiveness between you two?
For me, dude, honestly, it's understanding that the project's bigger than you. And so if I like Luis's script, it automatically becomes about Luis's script, not me, not him, not Tricast. It doesn't matter. None of that matters anymore. It's about making that script the best it can be, because I know that if we make a great film, and I spoke to Carlos about this in the meeting that I had with him about his project, where it was like, if he makes it or I make it or Luis makes it, it kind of like brings us all up, right? It gives us like a path to follow and be like, oh, he already did this, then I can learn it easier. I have someone close to me that
and we do have that relationship to this day. Like, before, when we would ask each other, like, yo, how did you get away with this? How did you get away with that? When we were making our first films, their first film was a film called We the Crazies, which was a terrific film, man. And it was a fun experience to watch. And I think I'm going to say this feeling, because I felt about their film, or I guess I should say Francisco's a director, right? I felt about We the Crazies what he's communicated to me he felt about Sun City Lights, which was we weren't seeing people in El Paso take it that seriously. Like, watching a Tricast film was the first time I remember thinking like, ah, shit, somebody's like say kind of same deal. Like we got some competition, man. Like, oh shit, there's somebody. But more importantly than that, it was like, oh shit, somebody actually cares and is trying, and you can see it in their work. And and that whole rivalry competition thing, I think it's safe to say, at least between me and Francisco, like we've had these moments. And I think it's important just to talk about this because we've had these moments where like I remember the first feature after Depth of Field, my first like, I don't know, I'm gonna say my first good feature that I wrote, like my first good feature script that I wrote that still isn't even public because we're waiting to get money for that. But anyways, he read it and he's like, dude, he's like, I remember going through the script and thinking, fuck him, like fuck you, like you did something better than me. And then I remember watching the Bunny King. And it was the same thing. We'll talk about Bunny King.
Yeah, man.
I watched Bunny King, and I remember at the screening at Alamo, and I think we watched it before. That's a cool relationship we have too. Like I had seen cuts of Bunny King before, and I remember thinking like, "Fuck, man! Like dude, like he's better. Like he did something better than me," and it just kind of encourages that. So I think it's a really cool thing that we do challenge each other that way. And it feels like the last few things we've done or the last few things we've collaborated on or talked about, it feels like we are one-upping each other, but more importantly, we're one-upping ourselves. So Francisco will give me comments like, yo, dude, this is your best shit yet. Like, this is way better than that shit. And then I'll say like, dude, like Bunny King was way better than I was the film with Kalon that you did, Hannah. You know, like that was kind of one of the last things he did before jumping into Bunny King. I was like, yeah, dude, like this shit was way better than Hannah. And we're one-upping each other that way. But at the same time, it's just about us. Like, yo, dude, are you becoming better? And we call ourselves out on our shit. Like Francisco and Luis are awesome in the way that they've, just like Austin and Eric and Castro, like people like that really have called me out on my shit in the most positive, constructive way. Francisco and Luis will be like, yo, man, this isn't good. Like, this isn't you. Like, we know you could do better in this shit. What is this? And it's a really special thing when somebody cares enough about your art that they tell you that.
Yeah.
You know? And you know what, man? The whole idea of keeping it healthy, it's an interesting one because I'm not sure how we've done it because Luis and I tend to be really harsh on each other's work, but that's just because we know that it's to make it better, right? So like, no one's harder on each other's work than each other. So like Luis destroys my work and I destroy his, and it's always like in the hopes that the next thing that we come up with is even better than that. Yeah. And I feel like slowly with the Tower guys, we've found that footing where at first you're kind of like testing the waters, right? And you're like, could I criticize this? Can I really tell them that I don't like this shot? Can I really tell them that this certain script I just didn't vibe with? And slowly we're like getting to the point where I can just be honest and be like, yeah, dude, I just don't think this is good. And or yes, this is bad. This is the best thing you've done. There's all these mistakes though. There's all these things that I don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you want somebody who can see your growth. Like I've seen you from level 1, bro. Like I know you, and I see you now at level 10. But like I know you can take it to level 11. Like that's actually good to have.
I could be wrong here, but I think what keeps the thing healthy in terms to your question, Juan. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Luis and Francisco. I think what keeps it healthy is the fact that you see the potential in the other person, and when they're not reaching that potential, it pisses you off. And I think that's what keeps it healthy is like you're not telling them, you're not competing with them, you're not telling them a comment of whatever they're working on to shut them down, to bring them down. You're telling them because you see the potential in this person, and because they're not fighting for it the way you think they should be fighting for it. That's what's like it keeps it healthy. You care about the person's art. And I think that's what the ingredient that keeps it healthy. That's what I'm gonna say. Yeah,
I feel you. One of the things I do love about your guys' work is that your guys' I really am interested in watching something you guys made in your early days, just in compare it, because I know that you guys are very selective of what you want people to see from you guys, and I think that's not a bad thing. Like I think that's okay. Like if you guys don't, Quentin Tarantino talks a lot about movies that ended up being guitar picks. Like, if those are your guitar picks, that's fine. But I would love to get a glimpse of that growth just because, especially with your Instagram handle, bro, Francisco, like, you really see that. Yeah, you really see the craft. And I've had friends even hit me up like, this guy? I'm like, yeah, we know him. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's awesome. He's awesome. So, like, there's always this sense of artistry between you and how you and your team, Trikcast, you and Luis handle lights. And this is a cool episode because it's 2 directors this time around. And, we're going to segue into your guys' movies in a bit, but one of the things I did kind of write down, because I've always wanted to, I can't have these conversations every day with you guys. So, I kind of utilize the podcast to do that, to have conversations, to get to know these filmmakers a lot more. So one of the things that I would say is that your guys' work reminds me of the movies I love, like Ex Machina, who, Alex Gennard, he did that, and then Alienation, Sunshine, like.
Look at Francisco smile right there. Look at Francisco smile.
that is.
Oh no, but you know what I mean, like, because I feel you, man. Like I think that.
I think Ex Machina is one of Francisco's favorite films, right?
Really?
Yeah, well, of that year, yeah.
Really?
It is one of my top. Like, I have a top 100, and then I think it's top 50.
Well, I want to ask.
Very analytic about this.
Well, I want to ask, what was the spark? Was there a movie, or what got you into filming, or I guess photography? I don't know if Francisco started with photography. Was it a movie?
And I feel like this is the main thing, and how we sparked our friendship, Luis and I, is that we from very early in our childhood had this love for storytelling, regardless of the medium. We just consume media so much, consume storytelling, consume narratives, right? We would love comics and manga and anime and movies and series and all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And when you address a movie, but you also have it, you can also compare it to a song or to a painting or to an anime. And it starts becoming this awesome thing where you start realizing like how everything connects, right?
Connected,
and so I always had that love for storytelling, right? But I actually was studying engineering at UTEP. And I remember not feeling like I was doing the right things with my life. I was like, I get good grades and I'm pretty decent at this, but I don't see myself being an engineer, and there was something missing, right? And I would watch movies, and every single time that I watch a good movie, it was almost like someone punched me in the face. It was almost like someone.
And you come from that background too, Francis, right? Because you're if I'm not mistaken, your dad's an engineer.
Yeah, my dad's an engineer, and the thing is, my dad's like a mad genius that I've always admired, and I always try to kind of follow. He knows all these languages. He has his master's, dual engineering. So he's a very, very smart guy, and I always thought for me to be a great person, I have to be like that, right? And when I had to kind of separate myself from that and be like, I can be a great person with my own thing, which is in this case is filmmaking.
What's interesting too is he loves cinema, because I remember your dad. Yeah. I remember your dad with we've bumped into him at screenings, just we go watch a movie at Alamo or something, and your dad's there watching the movie with you guys. He loves movies as well. So.
Yeah, that's my main love for movies comes from going to the movies with my dad, and my dad, I remember it's funny because I don't even like the movie that much anymore, but watching Phantom Menace, the first Star Wars movie with him, such a big experience for me, because he was the first time as a little kid watching spectacle movies, right?
Yeah.
And thinking how do you, Luis and I have this talk about before directors seem like gods to us, because I just couldn't fathom that a man could create this, and for me that's where it all starts. But I don't know,
religion, and then you realize the dogma, and you realize he created Jar Jar Binks. So if God is good, why is there the devil? If George Lucas is awesome, why is there Jar Jar Binks? I get you.
What about you, Luis? Where does your spark come from?
So
is it an event or a movie?
It kind of mirrors Francisco's in a way. I feel like there is one big difference, but for me, when I was a kid, I was, I was the artist kid, introverted. I used to draw and sculpt, and I love music. I absolutely adore music. So there was a lot of
music lover. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lot of connections in artistry, but the combination was always cinema. I used to go to the movies, and with my dad too. He used to take me out of school or 3 a.m. and let's go watch a premiere or something.
No way!
It's not like he's the biggest movie. Sorry, guys. He's not the biggest movie person, but it's just one of those things that I loved it so much, and he knew that I loved it so much, so he was willing to kind of make those little sacrifices for me. Yeah. And it was like Francisco said, it was. For me, the fact that it was, for me, so ethereal, watching a movie, it was the reverse of what Francisco kind of felt, where I felt like it was impossible to do this. There was no way for me. For me, conceptually, it would be easier to become an astronaut than be a filmmaker.
Yeah, I used to think the same thing. Where do you start? That's where
Yeah. So going back to one of the first questions, I feel like one of the first, biggest thing for a filmmaker is allow yourself to dream, because that's gonna open the doors to be able to really pursue bigger things and be able to go into those big stories.
Dreaming up a story and dreaming up motion pictures is almost it's almost uncanny, man. Like it's almost impossible for you to dream up this fictional world that you create. So you're absolutely right, Luis. I think that's a really good point.
Yeah. So throughout the journey of my life, I learned how to dream, and then now I'm pursuing that through the art form of cinema. You know.
How do you because we just talked a little bit about how like
cool.
It seems like you both have different chef hats. Like you guys are. I mean, you like to sculpt when you were little, you know, and Francisco photography. Luis, do you do photography too, or is it just Francisco?
There was a lot of drawing, so there was a lot of the visual, and we connected with the visual. But we both love music.
I think what's cool about both of them too is that I've had the pleasure as a director, man. I've had the really good pleasure of having both of them be my DP. In different projects. You know, Francisco was my DP for a bunch of like student projects that we had classes in. And then Luis was my DP for At a Loss, which we've talked about here on the TowerCast before. And Luis comes through, man. Like you see his binder full of drawings, and you see that artistic side to him. And Francisco, you see that how he can visualize a world that way. Francisco is, I think, an aficionado of photography, man. Like to the point where I reached out personally to like, hey man, I need you to be the guy to take my pictures because I don't trust anybody else, and he has gracefully, man, and those two sensibilities and directors of photography, because I think that's one of the many things that makes them good directors individually, is that they appreciate the art of cinematography, they appreciate the art of photography, it's still photography and drawing and storyboards and what constructs a story. That the ego that a director gets sometimes is like, man, like I don't have to learn all the technical shit. I'm good. I'm gonna focus on the vision. But when you learn the technical side, it's almost like you enamor it's that much that you want to learn about it. And when you I guess when you appreciate an art form that much, it makes your art better. You're in love with the whole art form, and I think that's what Francisco and Luis have. I think that's really
Carlos, also about. For me, for example, it's very easy because like you take a nice, decent picture and you put it on Instagram and you get all these likes and all this positive feedback, and it's very easy to lose track of how good you really are in whether it's in social media or you release a film, right? And all these people that worked on a film are telling you that it's great. Well, of course they're gonna say that it's great. What else are they gonna say, right? So you need that honest feedback from outside sources, and sometimes the best feedback actually comes from the people closer to you. So, for example, I show Luis all the pictures I've ever posted, and I usually get the most like criticism and the most like, oh, you should have done this, you could have fixed that, you could have done this, and it doesn't come from a place of like, you asshole, you messed it up. It comes from a place of like, oh, think about it. Next time you do it, you can make it better this way, right? And it's way easier to get better that way, and it's way easier to like understand your artistic path, I guess. Rather than constantly getting like positive feedback. I mean, I'm pats on the back and like, you're great. That works and that's great, and that's an ego booster. And sometimes you need that just to keep going and for morale. But the way you get better is to have people next to you that are going to keep you honest. And for me, it's interesting because I started animation for a little while. I also used to draw a lot. And I remember that when I saw Luis drawing, it was one of those weird things where you're like, when you meet someone that's like so like you, that you're like, this is kind of weird. Like, I don't know.
It was like a lot, like, because I was actually considering being an animator. So it was like a lot, like we were alike.
And so whenever we make movies, I don't know if you agree, Luis, but like we storyboard stuff and we come up with very similar ideas, and we get excited because we know that if we get two, like for example, like if I come up with a shot and he comes with the same shot but on his own, and we talk about it, it's almost like way more exciting because we know we got it right. Once both of us thought about the same idea or we agree on the idea, it's almost like, oh, okay, cool. Like we're in the same wavelength, and this is gonna work. And so I don't know. For me, it's way more exciting to approach a film that way. And for me, when I DP for Luis, it's also understanding that he's also a good DP. So I cannot bullshit.
You can't bullshit him. Yeah.
He's gonna catch me bullshitting, and I also catch him. So it's fun. It's just a fun thing.
I think you can. It's also something that you through that relationship you build trust, and I think within that trust you let yourself kind of go crazy and have all these ideas, and you know that you have somebody to check on you.
Yeah.
Instead of holding you back, like you would usually be like, oh, maybe this shot wouldn't work. And you know what I mean? So
because there's DPs that exist. There's DPs, unfortunately, at least, in the scene that we've been exposed to, there's DPs that exist that are pretentious, that, they think they're better than a director. And they might be in the technical. They might, Francisco, I'm talking to you, fucker. No, they might be, but they're not there to service the story. They're there to service themselves. They're there to get their ego on the screen, And I think that's important about these guys like that appreciate the art of cinematography. Like any project they're going to be a part of, be it Tower, be it Tricast, be it anything, they care about this project being the best.
Francisco puts it aside, at least, that. Like,
I would say too, Carlos. I was writing a paper on a philosophy class, and I quoted one of my both Francisco and I's.
You quoted me. Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
I couldn't. How could I?
You wish.
I quoted Cuarón. You wanted to be next to Cuarón, sure.
There you go.
And I feel like there's this concept of what is cinema, and he was talking about it on a screenwriting lecture. How cinema is the sum of its is something that is more than the sum of its parts, and understanding the parts of what is cinema, the visual, the music, the dialogue, the plot. Like I remember me and Francisco, we were like kids on a toy store when we began, because there were so much things to grow from. From music to editing and we were new in a lot of things. There was just a few things that we knew that naturally we were okay. Like visuals, we knew like, okay, that's more natural. It comes a little more natural. But film after film, it was like, okay, how can we make the music better? How can we make the editing better? How can we make the performance better? And it was a lot of studying and a lot of hours put into the films. But yeah, just kind of that dynamic of letting some beings next to somebody that you can trust that are going through that same path. It's so cool.
Let's talk about some of those moments. I think this is a good place to talk about your films.
The highlight reel.
And definitely on this podcast we're going to be promoting a lot of their stuff. And recently Tricast had this really cool almost like breakout party that we were lucky enough to be invited to at Alamo Drafthouse, and we got to see every single one of their works. At least the public works, because we've been friends for so long that we've also seen films that never made it out of the editing bay. And I think that's where they've seen those films of ours, and we've seen those films of theirs. But they had this breakout party, and they showed a lot of fantastic pictures, and two of the ones we're definitely going to focus on. And a highlight reel that they have already on their YouTube. So make sure to check out Tricast on their YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. They have all three.
Let's see how good you guys are. So the link is gonna appear right here.
There you go, Austin.
You're gonna click it,
right there.
and then there's gonna be Dragon's gonna take it out.
My name is Francisco, and you're watching Tricast.
Hey, Austin, make sure to put the Tower Prod website, dude. Don't even fuck with them. Don't even put their... No, but anyways,
don't worry. Let them get their hopes up. The Tower stuff is all going to be there, though.
No, but really, just to ask you guys, we're going to talk about... Let's start with They Were Seen Dancing. This was a picture that Luis wrote and directed, and then Francisco was a DP. Let's talk about this picture. I think it's a very special film. I think it's an idea that was birthed from Luis's artistic musical sensibilities. So can you talk a little bit about how that film came to be, Luis?
Yeah. So I think like if you go to the demo reel, there's a quote from Orson Welles, and I think it highlights this film particularly, where I came from a place of sheer ignorance. Like I didn't know what I was doing. But it's such a good place because you start playing with friends around you, and then you start making something that there's no way you could have made at that point. That was my first short film. That was my directorial debut and in the short world, you can say. And it's basically a film about an artist here in El Paso who is dreaming big. He's dreaming he's gonna become a star, and there's no way that he's gonna become a star here in El Paso. So he takes his sister and goes to LA and to pursue his dreams. And tragedy strikes in LA. Things are not the way. Dreams are not the way that reality is. So he eventually comes back, and he finds that here in El Paso, there's more than what he thought he was missing. There is something that is more valuable than he was pursuing.
That's beautiful.
That is.
But through that, I mean, like, it's the story of musicians. So I needed to find a musician, and so I found it with a great actor, Danny. And Danny, he was very talented. We chose him because he could help us actually write the song. So the main song of the film, we co-wrote it mainly with Danny's help. And I have a really good friend among many that helps us with our short films, Johnny Thorson. So he helped us with the lyrics.
Shout out to Johnny.
Friend too. And it was a collab of a lot of collaboration, we had a lot of vacations because we were trying to make this feel like another place and also feel like El Paso. And I mean, like Braid. I mean, there's the co-star Valerie Corpus in that film, and I know that she's worked with you guys. So
shout out to Valerie.
Shout out to Valerie. She's out living the dream in LA, man. Also pursuing acting. So shout out to her. Shout out to her.
Can I say something real quick, Luis? Can I say something about in the audition process? When they went to audition for the role of the main guy.
Yeah.
We had talked about that we wanted a musician that was really, really good that could help us like compose the song or whatever. And I took my guitar just in case they wouldn't bring one. And so while they were outside, I was just like messing with it. And I'm not great at guitar, but I can play. And 2 people complained about me playing from the outside, being like, oh, well, I mean, not complain, but like they were like, I don't know if I can play as good as that, but I dabble or whatever. And Luis told me, he was like, hey, man, maybe don't play because you're like scaring them. And I told him, like, honestly, dude, you don't want someone who I can scare with my skills. You want someone who's going to come in and be way better than me. And Danny came in and was way better than me. And he not only played well, but he sang great. And he was a very talented musician. And that, I feel that was like one of those like aha moments where we were like, okay, this guy for sure, in terms of the musician part, he's the guy. I feel like Luis knew that.
I think it's interesting to talk about this being Luis's directorial debut, because Luis and I we've met, we met in college as well, and then we had classes together, which was really cool. We had a ton of classes together. I think Francisco and I, we had a few, but I definitely had more classes with Luis. And Luis and I would meet up somewhere and we'd walk to class. And while we were walking to class, we were pitching each other projects. And what's interesting about Luis is that Luis, he didn't become a director per se. He didn't make his directorial debut until like 2-3 years after the fact. 2-3 years after I met him, anyways,
Well, let's say a year and a half.
Like a year and a half. Yeah.
I mean, well, you're right, because until we saw the work, at least it was probably like 2 years later, right? So. But he would always pitch these amazing ideas, and I always, my head goes into the kind of the Tower mentality that was back then. It was like, well, just make it, dude. Let's just fucking make the movie already. Like, and Luis was always careful enough to be like, no, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. And he was learning through Francisco's directing, I think, as well, and through other great directors. And I think that's so interesting. Like, I don't have the patience to do that. I don't have the mental stability to do that, man. Like to observe everything and absorb everything and take your time to finally say, all right, it's time. And I think you did that very well with this film, Luis. I think this film came at the right time in your life, and it was a great directorial debut, man. So I think props for that you were able to hold out so long and make something great. It worked for you.
And you weren't afraid to be honest.
The balls to take the leap.
And that's what I like about it too. You weren't afraid to be honest either, like with your storytelling. You know what I mean? Because I think that, like, there's a good quote by Alejandro Jodorowsky. There was a documentary about the Dune movie that never got made, and it's a really awesome documentary. And so he's talking a lot about about ego, and as an artist, like we all dream about being this big thing one day, and then as we sort of mature through our journey, we realize that in order for us to center ourselves, like that's what's going to make us a better artist once we become real and honest about the dreams that we have. And I like that story. Jodorowsky's quote is that, you have to have 2 hands behind the wheel, like the ego and the child. And I think that story you told is very childish because it's this dreamer, but then it's also very, adult, where it's like
serious content. Serious.
I think what's interesting about that is that like, I think I came the other way. I think I didn't find my ego until I made that film. It was like a little glass that was filling up with experiences, and at that point, it was kind of sipping over. You know, like it was time. It was time to drink the
Is that because
water.
maybe like when you were younger, you were more like closed off, and then as you kind of had this like when you're like, oh.
No, he wanted to see the tears of all the filmmakers he worked with, and then drink it and just be like, all right, it's time. I'm gonna do this shit.
That kind of.
Did this man drink your wine?
Person. But
Francisco, what was your impression, man? You worked on this as a DP, and you're Luis's very close collaborator. What was your impression about his first time directing? You know?
Oh man, this is interesting because Luis and I have this very strange relationship because he's also like in parts like a little brother to me, where I felt so much pride in seeing him direct, because when I met Luis, and he can tell me if it's too much, but when I first met Luis, he was a very quiet guy. He didn't like speaking in public. He had a hard time speaking in public, and I saw him like break out of his shell, and specifically in this film, it was like from the guy I met to watching him just direct a set and watching.
And look at him now at the TowerCast podcast in front of millions of listeners. I'm kidding. Like, probably 5 listeners.
This is definitely a low point. But other than this,
it's definitely a speed bump in the road. But okay.
But he was a great leader, man, and that was something that I felt so much pride in. Where you will go to set and understand that you did have a good leader, that you did have someone that was like driving the ship, and even though it was like his first try at the bat, it was cool. It was just cool to see him out there, and it was also interesting because I had directed like 3 short films before this one, before he ended up directing, and I felt like I needed it selfishly. Allowing myself to just watch someone else do it and not having to be the leader was so refreshing and so good. And also for Tricast, it was our biggest production up to that point. We shot in many locations with different actors, with different things, and Luis also did a great job at driving the production. We had like 3 other producers who were Gibel, Johnny, and Octavio, and Luis was good at driving them because it was also their first time producing anything, so like he had to also show them and teach them. And so like you're asking a guy who's going to direct for the first time to teach producing, to write his thing, to edit his thing. It was so many things.
Also, there would be no way for me to do that if I did it when I met Francisco, because after I met Francisco, I did the assistant director for his first film, and then I did the cinematography for another 2 films, and the third one I did producing. So coming into the Racing Dancing, I had the producing, cinematographer, and assistant director's hat before the director's hat. So that allowed me to, if anything, be a little more comfortable and say, you guys, it's not a mystery. You guys need to do this. It's not like when I was a kid. It's not impossible. It's definitely impossible. So
it also taught me a lot about directing, man, because I don't know if you agree with this, Luis, but whenever you see someone else do it, you start picking up on things that you can either do as well, or you start noticing mistakes that you're like, oh, I also do that too. I probably shouldn't do that. Or like you start getting better just by looking at it. And it's just like experience as any other industry or any other thing. But the other thing is, for example, for me, it was just very interesting just because it was a story that we were both excited about. And that's the biggest thing for both of us. We tend to get really excited very quickly about our stories just because we know the possibility of the thing, right? And sometimes you don't quite get there, but just the idea, just the concept of like, damn, this script is so good. If we nail it, this is whiplash. You know what I mean? And maybe you don't nail it, maybe it's not whiplash, but just the idea that you can maybe get there is so exciting to both of us that it's always like that. That's what keeps us going, right? That's what makes us like, whenever I read a script, if I get that thing, if we both get like that spark of like, fuck, we're really good.
Yeah, you know, it's important. We're gonna make it. It's important to go for it because, you know, Kevin Smith has this really beautiful quote that he said in one of his stand-ups where he says, "Why not? Like, why not? Because you never know, that movie could be." I mean, and you know, I think that like,
why not?
We live in a very interesting era because I think short films are beginning to have a lot more merit nowadays, and especially within the, because there was a time, right, where indie filmmakers before YouTube, like a really good indie filmmaker was noticed, but now there's so much, you know, it really is about who has developed a good method for themselves, not who's the best, but who's just developed a good method, and you can tell. And I think everyone in El Paso has their own beautiful method, you know, And what I love about Kevin Smith's quote is that you have to encourage people, because you never know, that movie could be the one that saves your life or brings you up when you're down, or and there've been times, man, where I've watched Carlos's movies and I'm feeling down about something, and I watch it and I'm like, yeah, that makes me feel better. Or sometimes, when I feel like I'm not doing a lot, and then I watch the movies we have done together and I'm like, no, you know what, that was actually really cool. So it's those little things of like, and especially with your movie, Luis, I was very like, yeah, that's. I
think what's cool is this the talk about like when you rewatch your movies, you're not rewatching the filmmaker you are now. You're rewatching the filmmaker that was 2 years ago, and you almost like watch them just for nostalgia's sake. Like Francisco and I were talking about this the other day. Like, you watch your films for nostalgia's sake, and you just remember the memories that you had on set, and that's worth more than the actual film sometimes. Yeah. Especially your early work. And I could definitely see that this picture, I mean, look, we were lucky enough to be sent these films by the guys. Austin and I had seen them forever ago, but Juan, this was your first impression. What was your first impression of this film? You got to see it with fresh eyes.
I mean, like, I've always admired your guys' work, and I remember the first time I met you guys, just the way you guys were speaking, you guys have a very like tactical sense of film. And it's almost like your rounds are your, pieces of talking points. And when you guys shoot, you feel the bullet. So, one of the things that I really liked was like, I've been wanting to watch your stuff. I just didn't know where to go. And so when Carlos sent the links, I was like, okay, I'd seen one. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to get to watch these other ones. And so I'm always a fan first. I think that's something that I have to like put myself into. But as a fan, man, like, yeah, I really loved how I know. And plus I've been in meetings for future projects where I got to hear you guys, like your guys' development of a story or your guys' pitches, so to speak. So to see these films and see those same sensibilities tells me that you guys are very honest. And I think that's something that I value more than clout. Like, I love honesty. I love the honesty that Carlos has in his relationship movies. And I love the honesty that you guys had in each of your individual movies. So as a fan, as a first-time watcher, like I'm more of a fan even now, just because of your guys' visual style, your storytelling, and I see the importance, man. I see the arcs you want to tell. I see the lessons you want to be remembered within the audience. So that's something that's really cool.
Castro, had you been able to see? Because I know you're with us sometimes, or we're hanging out with these guys, or you get to see some of the screenings we do here at my house or wherever. But did you get to see? They were seen dancing before we sent the links, or?
No, I haven't seen them. I don't have a Facebook or YouTube. I don't really. But I've heard about Bunny King. That one's pretty good.
Okay, you heard cool. about it. Thank you, Eric. Anyways,
no, but that's good. I just kind of wanted to get.
Eric can talk about Matt Payne. He was part of.
Eric has got to work with both Tricast and Tower alike, and then who's better, Eric? You better say the right fucking answer if you want to get. No, but what was your experience like on the Tricast set, man?
You cut us too early. We're better now.
What was your experience on the Tricast set, man? This was a very interesting project, which didn't make it out the editing room. It was kind of one of those, things that was a really interesting concept.
It is a demo reel.
It's a demo reel, yeah. Oh, it was an interesting afternoon for sure. It was a good script. They called me for the afternoon to do it, so we only had like half a day to do it. So I don't know if I was rushing them or they were rushing me, but I just wanted to do a good job.
Yeah, it was like a rush school project that we, in Luis's and I's style, we went too ambitious, and I think it was a great experience. It's just that
I loved it. I loved that you guys put makeup on me. You guys made me wear a dress.
Right. Yeah, we dressed Eric up as Frida Kahlo. We had like the brow and everything.
What?
He did a great performance.
I want to watch something.
He was Frida Kahlo, Da Vinci.
It comes out in the reel. It comes out in the highlight reel. Like some.
But it was one of your first one, right? It was one of your first student projects, no, too.
Well, that was before they were seen dancing. That was just the short before they were seen dancing.
Oh wow!
We co-directed it, and it was like, okay, now I get this sense of directing and stuff like that a little bit better.
We only had an afternoon to shoot it, so that also made it.
Is there any other thing kind of before we get into Bunny King that you can tell us about They Were Seen Dancing, Luis, or your experience with the film or anything?
Yeah, I mean,
the reception maybe when you finally got to
the reception was crazy because I didn't expect it for people to connect with it, for people to get something out of it. I don't have a lot of ego, man. I thought I was when I saw it, I was like, man, I could have done this and I could have done that, but rewatching and stuff. But it's cool to see that there was value and that other people could see that there was value to it.
Yeah, of course.
So I was glad for it. Yeah, I mean, like I'm still really happy with a lot of the visual imagery that we accomplished. Because I feel like I would say that before that we did Mask World, and Mask World it was like a spectacle piece, right? It was like spectacle piece, and it was not a lot of plot. But this was
Francisco showing off his fucking visual effects skills, man. Come on.
But I mean, I'll be honest. This was the first one that we had dialogue.
That's right.
Dialogue.
Interesting.
Throughout the whole thing, and that was really tricky because afterwards there's no. Now there's BO, but there was no BO, and it was one of those things that was first experience, and we just made a decision on the editing room where it was like, okay, let's add BO. It's gonna make the whole thing flow better. There was so many changes on the editing room because at the point that we started editing it, it had been like a while, like a long while since we shot it. So we had that room to say, okay, the script is not viable. We can actually do something even better with just the ideas that we now grown into. So that was really neat. Just giving ourselves the time to become better, let the film be better on the editing room. You know what I mean?
Cool, man.
So, yeah.
Cool. Awesome, dude.
Super quick about They Were Seen Dancing also.
Yeah, please.
It also allowed me to meet a lot of people and work with a lot of people that I hadn't worked with up to that point. As I said, like our producers, two of those producers are still our producers to this day, which are Johnny and Octavio, and they produced everything pretty much that we've done so far. Like and it's funny because in They Were Seen Dancing, you will still see that rookie thing, you know, like that. I've never done this. How do I do this? Who do I talk to? Blah blah. And our latest stuff, it's so cool to see them lead people and them be like taking initiative,
the reins.
You know? and it's always cool, and it's just part of the making a film, I guess.
Sure.
With a team, which is seeing people grow, that's always really, really cool to me. And then the other thing is also like we met Danny, who is super talented. I met Valerie, who's a really good friend of mine as well, and I've shot with her many times, and I pictures, and I've done videos with her. I really like her as well. So like you meet actors and you meet crew,
long-time collaborators, people like you.
Working with.
Yeah, I totally second that because what we did for what was interesting about the casting period is that we were really lucky. We had a lot of actors show up, and there was a lot of talent. So what we said is like, well, what I decided was like, there's so many actors, let's just use all of them, at least 85% of it. So
you get a role, and you get a role, and you get a role.
Pretty much, man. There was a lot of roles on that short. So I was like, okay, this would be good for you. This would be good for you.
Yeah.
So I had like a second. We did like a second round of casting because I just wanted to find the right pairing with the protagonist. But at the end, it was clear that it was Danny and it was Val.
No, dude, one of my favorite scenes is the music store scene and.
Yeah,
because Vincent auditioned for the Danny role, and I think that Vincent's such a good actor. He just wasn't right for that role, but we've worked with him like 3 more times after that.
Also, Gabriel Cole, like he is a terrific theater actor, and he just brings it on a small part, but it's honestly that's one of the biggest like learning lessons of that film is that finding good actors just makes your film 10 times better. It's just way easier to work on set. It just makes it way more natural. It brings a soul. So that's why I like working with people like Eric.
Well, let's go ahead and transition over to Bunny King since we have Francisco here. Francisco, can you just give us your elevator pitch for the movie?
I wish I knew how to do those, man.
Yes, you can.
The elevator pitch will be: it's about a girl that just lost someone very, very close to her. And while going to these meetings about coping with that loss, she has flashbacks of that relationship, and you start seeing how that relationship really affected her and how losing that person really affected her. And it's a very like first person type of story where you see this experience from this one person and how her whole life has changed and how everybody else who she's interacting with, how they perceive her loss and how she perceives their loss as well, right? And so, for example, I will say that one of the biggest things that I love about this film is that it comes from a very personal place. The film is about someone losing their little brother due to cancer, and I wrote it when I lost someone to cancer, and so like I knew kind of like that mental state that you're in, right? And it was a very cathartic film for me because I worked a lot of things out, a lot of inner demons out through making the film, through writing the film, and so it was a very interesting experience for sure, man.
Well, that's beautiful. One of the things that I really enjoyed about this film was that, I think this is something that maybe you always strive for, is how like layered the characters are, because it's a very layered story, and because you're dealing with perspectives and stuff and loss and not just loss within family but loss within significant others. I did feel that truthfulness. Again, that's why I was saying honesty. I did feel that truthfulness within this one as well. What to you is the most important aspect of this movie that you learned prior to the other things that you have made? Was there something that you did that you were like, man, I'm scared to do this because I've never been this honest, or I've never written a character like this? What was different about? What was the most challenging part about this one?
Everything, dude. I would say that there's gonna be an interesting. I don't know.
Go for it.
The movie that I made before this one was Mask World. And I always said that Mask World was like a magic trick. It was me tricking you into thinking I was a good director, but I wasn't.
Damn.
It was a silent film with a lot of special effects, and I knew how to do cool-looking visuals and cool transitions with cool music, and it was a stylistic piece, but it had nothing to say. It had something to say, but I wasn't good enough to say it, I guess.
The style was the substance for that one?
Yeah, it was substance, style over substance. And when we got to this, the material mattered too much to me, the thing that I was saying mattered too much to me. And so when I started writing the script, it was almost like I didn't write the script. I always say that the script just kind of fell out of me, it wrote itself kind of.
Like, my boo.
Very poetic.
And then I ruined it.
Once I had that script, which was interesting because I kept rewriting it, not a lot. Like the main story is still there, right? I wrote dialogue, and I will change when certain character will speak, or I will change when we will cut to a certain thing, whatever. And once I felt like I got it right, if you can ever get it right, I knew that the script was there. I knew that I had something that I really, really loved and that I felt really strongly about. And once you have that,
I want to. Yeah, I kind of want to interject right there, Francisco, because the script was the first impression we got. It was the first impression I got. It was the first impression Eric Sanchez. I remember this script, The Bunny King, impacted Eric Sanchez a lot. Eric's working, by the way, but he's just on the call just to kind of chime in whenever he can. But I don't know if you're here, Eric. I don't know if you can chime in a little bit about how it affected you. But it had a lot of imagery very similar to like Alice in Wonderland, and this kind of just the moments that they talk about. And I know that's what affected Eric. But as far as me, when I read it, this was one of the first times where I was like, man, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be great. Like, this is a story that's really gonna hit.
Yes.
And it really did, man. I mean, like, what's so cool about this, the material too, is that this was the one film where Francisco wouldn't let us see a cut of until it was fucking perfect. You know what I'm saying? Like, we didn't get to see a cut until, well, I mean, we got to see cuts and we got to see kind of like little scenes, but a full cut of the film we really didn't get to see until right before the screening, and that was just to help Francisco tighten up little things. But it was so near and dear to his heart that he didn't want to show it until it was perfect. And I guess that's a moment, I guess that leads into my question. You guys as directors and writers, I guess, what do you guys look for? What is the pinnacle? What's the peak? What do you guys?
I'm still figuring that out, man.
Yeah, it's not like the reaction. The what?
there's always something new on the road of getting better and going towards something. Yeah. I remember it was very interesting during the time before you started writing, Fran, because we discussed the fact that a very strong emotion that you get when watching something is when there is injustice and there's nothing that you can do about it. Yeah. So we talked about that, and then Fran went into his own experience and put it on the paper with the Bunny King, and yeah, I mean, I remember talking about concepts and stuff like that and developing. Him sharing the story so that we can develop it a little bit more, and it was one of those things that there was so many things that came before it that it felt really right for us to go into the places that we were going with, that Fran was getting into with Bunny King. You know what I mean? Once we finished Bunny King, for me, one of the best things was like, I was so excited because the next thing is just gonna build from Bunny King.
Yeah.
Next thing is gonna go into something that is well built and well outlined.
And the next thing is actually the collaboration project we're doing with them, by the way.
Turn up the volume. I want to hear more.
I did want to say something super quick about, because in the elevator pitch, I didn't include something that was really fun for me, which was there's this weird background thing that's happening in the movie, which is the Alice in Wonderland side of things. Because the idea of it is this girl is telling her little brother about Wonderland, the Alice in Wonderland, and she's building all this lore and all these stories just as you would do with any little kid, right? But as the little kid gets sicker and sicker, those stories take a whole new meaning, and those stories become kind of like this escape for both of them.
Yeah.
During the story, we're intercutting with her when she already lost this kid. And she goes to these meetings, and the people in the meetings are the characters from Alice in Wonderland.
Some of the best scenes, man. Some of the most fantastic scenes is those meeting scenes are just terrific.
That's what I mean about there was in dancing. We learned about actors, and we knew that actors were integral to.
Yeah, and something that I told Luis is I want to write really difficult monologues, but I need the right people to pull them off. I need the right people that I'm like, I'm really comfortable with giving certain person this material, right? And going back to what I said right now about like me not being a great director in Mask World, I will say this. You're always learning filmmaking, but directing is a completely different thing. Directing it has to do with filmmaking, but it's even more than filmmaking, right? Because you also have to be a writer and a director of actors, and you have to be thinking about many, many things.
Sure.
And when I went to Bunny King, it was one of those things where my biggest fear right now, answering your question, Juan, my biggest fear was probably that was not doing justice to the material and not being a good enough director to direct the great actors that I was able to get. And what I ended up finding out.
Shout out to all of them, man. I don't know if you want to shout out their names, but like Melissa was a big impact.
Guys,
Julian,
Melissa Diaz, Bianca, Kim McKinn, Julian Cavett, Hector Des, Gibel Amador, and
Santiago.
Santi.
The kid.
Hope, Santi, and Carlos, who is that's my cast. And all of them, man, I will say this. I figured out that directing great actors is way easier than directing bad actors. And because they know that they want to do a good job. They're not just putting it on you. They're gonna give you things, and they're gonna start a dialogue, and they're asking for this collaboration, right? And sometimes when you're not working with a great actor, it's almost like you're pulling teeth. You're scratching at this thing.
Yeah.
When you're working with a great actor, they're doing a lot of the work for you. You just have to know how to guide them, how to face them in the right direction, right? And I was so lucky, dude. Honestly, that my cast is one of the biggest strengths of this film. And I remember something funny happened, and Luis was my DP for this film, and he did a freaking incredible job. But the first day of production, he couldn't be there. He had something where he was in Mexico City, and he couldn't be with me. So that whole first of production, I was my own DP. And it was a very difficult day because it was one of the days where I had most of my cast in this gym, and we were supposed to start filming monologues. And so I was thinking, like my directing hat. I had my directing hat, and I was like, I need to direct performance, and I need to direct actors, and yet I have to also light the freaking shot and compose it and blah blah, right? And I was so nervous, and I usually don't get nervous on set. I get nervous before and after, but never on set. And I was nervous because I was like, there's too much writing on this, and I'm starting to feel the pressure, and I don't want to mess it up. And so I frame my first shot, and I say, we're gonna do a monologue today. We're gonna start with a monologue, and let's just shoot it. It's gonna be a wonder, and I explain the shot, all that to my people. Let's go. Boom. And we film it, and Bianca, who's such a freaking amazing actress, she does this monologue, and everybody on the set just stays quiet. Like, we all know she nailed it, and there's like this weird energy of like, oh shit, this movie's a real thing. We're doing an actual movie today, guys. And it's funny because Kim McCann, who's like she's a professor at UTEP. She teaches theater and acting, and she's taught most of my cast, because most of my cast were theater actors from UTEP. So like, she was a professor of a lot of the people that were also acting opposite of her. And I remember even Kim looking at Bianca like, damn, and like, she started talking to her, and she was like, that was really good. And there was like this weird energy. Once she did her monologue, I felt so much safer, I guess, that I had the right people around me, and my team had all this energy. And that's what I mean about finding the right people. You know, it only takes one person to have a great day, and it lifts everybody else up. And so like, she did her monologue, and it allowed me to get through that day, and we got what we needed to get. And once I got Luis back and everything, it was like, okay, now we're ready. Like, now we have the first string team, I guess. Mm-hmm. And going through the actual production of that film was it was probably my biggest learning experience as far as a filmmaker, because it was teaching me, okay, the way I wrote the script, I had a lot of interesting and difficult transitions on the script. Usually, Luis and I think of those after the fact. That's how we were coming up, but we knew that we needed to get better at writing scripts. And I wrote that script with things in mind. I wrote it with musical transitions and match cuts and difficult things that were on the page, right? So we knew what to get. We knew that we had to film those. Yeah. Right. And keeping those things in your mind and knowing how to attack a certain aspect of filmmaking. And I remember someone asked me one day that if it wasn't difficult to direct certain emotional scenes, and I remember thinking like, it wasn't really that difficult, because I knew that the material was there. The script was something I already liked. Yeah. So as long as we had that on our back pockets, or as long as that was like our base, our foundation, we're gonna be safe. We're gonna do well. For sure. And it was incredible to see the actors make something that I thought was already good way better. Specifically, Hector. Hector Des is an incredible actor, and I freaking love working with him, because his character on the page was the only one that I didn't love, because I needed more. I needed that character to come across as like this very well-rounded person. Right. And I had my doubts, so I met with Hector many times about how we could give him more stuff, you know, how we could give him more personality, how we could, like, the way he dresses, the way he speaks.
Accomplish that?
In our first meeting, we came up with a lot of backstory for him. A story that wasn't on the script. We just wrote about his work, where does he come from? Who was the mom? Because the mom's not in the film. Who was the mom? How? I remember you telling me that was Hector's sensibilities as an actor, right, Francisco? Like, he came up to you and was like, I need to know more about this guy. Like, we need to really, And it was great. It was also a learning experience for me, because I thought, okay, here's an opportunity for me to develop this character more, but also to work with this actor who's trying to be better. You know, usually it's before, when you're first starting, it feels like it's all on your shoulders to make a good film. And the more you learn, the more you realize, like, no, everybody here is trying to also be part of a good film. And so when an actor comes up to you and they say, hey man, I need more, let's develop this, let's really go for this. It's really cool, because you know that they're doing it because they also respect you and the work, right? So he wasn't doing it from a place of ego. He was doing it from a place of like, for this to work, to
really engulf himself.
He took initiative and he did great. And I will say, for example, like, one of the main reasons Jubel was the main person in the main actress in the film. She plays Alice. She's my girlfriend in real life. And the main reason why I cast her, to be quite honest with you guys, is because I knew I was gonna be very emotional and very like hectic and all over the place for this film, just because of the material, just because it was so close to me, and having people that I consider family on set was important to me, you know. And so when when she would have a very difficult scene or when I had like to do all my monologues, I felt super, super safe. And it started becoming a fun thing to go to set, where before it was almost like I don't know, like I used to play sports before, and when you're about to have a game, sometimes you get those nerves of like, oof, I better perform. But sometimes you have a great week practicing, and you're like, you know what, I am gonna perform well because I have all this background. I feel good today, and that's how I felt throughout all of Bunny King, you know.
Yeah.
And except for one day, which Luis and I had a nightmare day happen once in production, where everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. We had issues with the camera. We had to rush.
It was 2 days, but I would say that looking back, it wasn't that big of a deal.
No, it wasn't. It was just those things where you're exhausted. So any little issue that came up, we were like, fuck, well, should we even finish this? Because we tend to be very, very emotional, unstable when you're like that naked in front of people. And
Francisco likes to actually be naked on set when he's directing. So
that's my rule, guys. And that's my rule. And you know what? If you can't take it, then maybe we shouldn't work together.
That's what he said to me in the bedroom with the camera. But well, it's fine. It'll be fine. No. But I think it's, you know what? I think it's safe to say that this film, but it's both of your work because, like, Francisco directed, Luis DP'd. I think it's safe to say that it's the best thing that Tricast has done up to this point. And it's a fantastic film, and it's, you're right, you have to build on top of that to kind of, push yourself to even further lengths. This is definitely my favorite thing that I've seen come out of you guys, at least on the screen. It's been fantastic to be able to see your guys' journey to get to that point. And the thing that we're currently working on, I think, also pushes the envelope for both of our teams, and it's going to be very, very exciting to get.
Very beautiful collaboration. I can't wait for the TowerCast episode for that one. That's going to be.
Yeah, we're definitely got to have an episode about that. But yeah, no, just to kind of in terms of wrapping Bunny King, I do think it's the best thing that we've been able to see on the screen. And I don't know if you want to just talk about. Besides the reel that's already on your guys' pages, when can we expect to see a little more? I know that Bunny King is in his festival run and it's kind of doing some stuff. But for the people listening, when can we expect to see it out on publicly?
Bunny King, actually, even the cut that you guys have is not the final cut. We were still fixing audio stuff. So our audio engineer told us that by the end of this month, the film's going to be done. And once it's done, it's a year of festivals.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like from that side, that's what you guys can expect is just Bunny King in a bunch of festivals. And then after, that's probably the first film that we're going to put up somewhere.
Yeah, definitely locally, and also out there. We're planning for Bunny King to go to other places. But locally, like El Paso, Marfa, Las Cruces, those you can expect like a lot of films, like at least 2 from mine. Bunny King still has his run, so a lot of runs throughout.
Festival runs.
Beautiful, man, beautiful. Is there anything you guys want to say to filmmakers out there that are aspiring to be filmmakers that are listening in on this that could use some advice from 2 very, very good filmmakers that we've had the pleasure of knowing?
Thank you.
Oh, you guys know 2 very good filmmakers?
I was talking to myself, but yeah, then never mind. You guys can answer. That's fine.
Yeah, the mirror. It's like, oh shit.
I don't know, man. I would say just to go back to what I was missing. You just allow yourself to dream. Yeah.
Ooh.
I like that. That was nice. I like that, Luis.
Yeah, put that on a t-shirt.
Honestly, put
that on a bumper sticker. Francisco, how about you, man? Anything you kind of want to say to aspiring filmmakers out there?
I would say just film stuff. Do it. Go out there, make a film, mess it up, do it again. The more you do it, the more you understand what your flaws are, and the more you understand about filmmaking, the more you understand who you need to get, the more you start meeting people. So like, it's funny because when I used to be a starting filmmaker that had not done anything, right? I'll hear people say that. I will hear people say, yo, just go out there with your camera and shoot something. And it always felt so stupid to me. Like, okay, yeah, but like I don't have the resources, I don't have this, I don't have that. You're saying it from like a very philosophical, idealistic place, but you're not being realistic, right? And And now after having done a couple films and after starting the production company and everything, I realized like, well, yeah, like you just have to go out there and do it, because that's just gonna teach you things that you don't have. Like, it's not about you. When they say go out there and do it, we're not saying go out there and make a film that's gonna win an Oscar, dude. Like, you're gonna like right away. Like, no, it's go out there, mess it up, do it again, and it's just a constant thing, a constant loop. For me and Luis, the main reason why we've done the short films is because we forced UTEP and El Paso to become our film school, to become our film school experience. And so when we set out to do a short film, we never set out to make an Oscar winner. We just set out to make the greatest short film that we could make at the time that we were making it. Yeah. And so whatever that meant. And it became a great film school. And El Paso is an incredible, what Luis said it perfectly. It's like a toy store. It's like a candy store where everything's available to you. Yeah. El Paso and small cities like El Paso is like, if you have a dream and you take it somewhere, someone's going to help you with it. We for Bonnie King, we ended up shooting at hospitals that when we first started, we thought, how do you even shoot at a hospital? Yeah. They were in Nancy, we shot at the bus that you guys helped us like figure out which bus company we should like ask. Yeah. And so like El Paso is like a candy store, because in LA, it's very difficult to do those things. You need permits, you need a lot of things that in El Paso is more like just talk to the guy. The guy might be really nice and a film buff, and he might say like, oh, you guys are making a film? Sure, here's my 5-star hotel, come film here. Like, yeah, for sure. That's just how it works. And as long as you're making it, you're going to find resources, you're going to find the right people, you're going to get better. And I feel like that's kind of like, you just have to remove that little ego thing aside of like, oh, but my film has to win an Oscar. No, it doesn't. You just have to become a better filmmaker. So maybe hopefully one day you make good films.
You heard it here on the TowerCast from these guys from Tricast Productions, guys. It's been a beautiful collaboration with these guys. I can say that firsthand. On a friendship level and on a professional level, man, these guys are. Francisco had this conversation, and I had this conversation the other day that we don't want to be the El Paso filmmakers that stay the El Paso filmmakers. We want our work to be seen and to break the forum here in El Paso. And I feel like the Tower and Tricast have been some of the companies that have challenged other companies and other filmmaking groups and other filmmakers alike to push to the envelope. Like we do good work because we care about doing good work. We care about the quality of the stories that we're telling. And I am hoping to see more filmmakers kind of do that for their own sake, to see our work and be like, oh shit, these guys actually care about it. I want to care about it that much. And Francisco and I have had that conversation where we don't want to be the filmmakers, the El Paso filmmakers that tell the El Paso stories of drug trafficking and, whatever that typical El Paso story kind of is sometimes. We want to break the script. Well, that's different. That's actually a good story. No, but
this is a true story.
But we've talked about being those filmmakers that want to break the forum and don't want to stay in El Paso, or if we do want to stay in El Paso, we don't want our work to reflect that this is all we set out to do. We care about making quality pictures that the whole world can see. So,
and that's the importance of this podcast. That's sort of like the mission statement is it's the Towering podcast for the Towering filmmakers. Like you guys are you guys are growing. You guys are becoming monumental figures. And I think at the end of the day, what differentiates you from somebody who didn't make it, which that word is not even non-existent, they just gave up, and you guys haven't given up. And, again, like, especially during these quarantine times, I mean, Hollywood isn't even making any movies. So if they're going to need their fix of good stories, they're going to get it from us. And I think that's very important. There is a quote I wanted to give to you guys. I think my sort of position that I put myself in this podcast to be sort of like a coach. You guys have, I'm sure you guys are living life and you guys are, experiencing the things you're experiencing, but getting to hear these conversations and getting to pull from you guys and really getting a good sense of who you are, has allowed me to sort of like, become like sort of just I'm your Mickey, in Rocky. Like I'm going to help you guys eat lightning and shit thunder, so there's a quote that I think I want to give to you guys. Hopefully you guys accept it. Film is never really good unless the camera is in the hands of a poet. And that's from Orson Welles as well. Yeah. And I think that you guys and everybody in this podcast and all the filmmakers in El Paso, we all have many different things that we do besides film. And it's not because we don't know what exactly it is that we want to do. We're just life poets. And every art, no matter what it is, whether it be sculpting, whether it be, photography, lighting, directing, acting, the moment we helm into our positions of making movies, that's the poetic side of it, and now we're able to come into it with fresh eyes and a fresh soul. So, you know, I love this conversation. Francisco, Luis, Carlos, Castro, you guys know I love you guys, and you know I've enjoyed the ride, and hopefully we all get to see your guys' movie, you know, that's coming out, this project you guys are doing. You know, it'll be a matter of time before it comes out, but we shall see how it turns out. But I don't know if anybody else has anything else to say, but
Luis and Francisco, if you guys have anything else kind of to close
shout
this out.
outs.
Yeah, hope you guys had fun.
Yeah, I mean,
this is like
just stay tuned for the next Trikcast Productions.
I'll say that, just a reminder that Luis and I are nobodies. We just do it for the love of film. We're still nobodies. We just do it because we like films, and like Luis said beautifully, we learn how to dream, and we dream big, and that's what we're trying to do here.
And it's important, man. It's important to document the come up. So you know, you're not nobodies. You're someone, but you're gonna make it.
I'll say this: when you said something about giving up, but I don't think we, at least me and Francisco, and I talked with Carlos about this. I don't see this as something that is gonna end. It's rather our life. So just keep living and just keep breathing and moving, and that's gonna flourish into keep doing films and keep pursuing your dreams.
Yeah. Just
keep being you, and that's good enough.
I mean, hey man, if PewDiePie can make millions, we can make millions, you know. And he hasn't stopped. But does that wrap it up?
Yeah. I think take us out.
Shout outs to our reel, if people can go watch the reel.
To our wonderful friends, Johnny, Orlando, Crystal,
Octavio,
Diego, our wonderful audio engineer.
Yeah, Jibel.
They're the real stars.
Cool, man. Yeah. We've met some of those crew, if not all of them, especially in this new collaboration we're doing, and fantastic team that you guys have garnered up, man. For real, they're people that love what they do, and I think that they love what they do because they have good leaders. So terrific job, man. Check out their work, guys. Trikcast Pictures. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them on YouTube and Instagram. And that's where they'll be posting their work. On YouTube is where they have their new reel. It takes 5 minutes out of your days, guys, and I promise you it's worth it. Those 5 minutes of that reel is fantastic.
Go take a peek.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Luis, for returning. Thank you so much, Francisco, for starting up with us. Carlos, John Eric Castro, the actor. That about does it for these towering filmmakers. As always, keep writing your scripts, keep pushing through your writer's block, and if you haven't heard it from anyone else besides your mom, then you'll hear it from us. We believe in you and all the hard work you are bringing to your moving pictures. Don't forget to look at your call sheet. Don't you dare say it, fix it, and post. That's the Voldemort of phrases right there. And remember to send the love and appreciation towards your cast, your crew, and all the hard work that we know they're doing. Towering filmmakers, we'll see you guys on set.